Okay, so really quickly, I'm just going to explain what this is. This is a little essay thing for my course, The Art of Game Design, that I thought I'd record and turn into a video because, you know, video games, we're a video game channel. I think it's interesting. But the premise was that we needed a good example of procedural rhetoric and a bad usage. So, don't know what procedural rhetoric is? No, I explain it. But, so that's why Greece gets the shit end of the stick here. No, again, listen, I want to say, just establish, I'm going to say this, I know in the essay, but Greece is an excellent experience, and I highly recommend it, and I really could make a whole video praising it, but then it would be like every other video on Greece out there. Greece is wonderful, but it falls flat in procedural rhetoric in specific. It probably wasn't even made, like, with that intent at all, but like, okay, just, here's the video. Procedural rhetoric is a concept that can completely shape how a game will affect the player. Its usage, when done correctly, could be the deciding factor on how positive player perception is of a game. But how does this affect replayability? First of all, what is procedural rhetoric? Well, procedural rhetoric is a concept coined and developed by Egon Bogost in his book Persuasive Games, the Expressive Power of Video. Essentially, it refers to the conveying of information, whether it be morals, mechanics, meaning, or practically anything, whether it is physically through the game or not in any way other than expressly talking about it. Conveying information via writing, word, or even pictures falls outside of this category. A good example of procedural rhetoric is in Mr. Bogost's text. The rhetoric of video games is America's Army. It may seem like a standard multiplayer shooter from the outside, but in reality it offers, quote-unquote, a realistic look at army personnel and career opportunities via sophisticated role-playing, which has a serious effect on the standard conventions that the genre usually uses. The most popular military-style shooters, such as Call of Duty, CSGO, and Rainbow Six Siege, tend to have several game modes, and while there are gimmicks, it generally revolves around the total annihilation of the other side. They, while you do have a team on your own, encourage competition, counting your KDR, which is considered pretty much all that matters by the community. In America's Army, however, you are forced to collaborate with your team in realistic missions, such as rescuing a prisoner of war, capturing an enemy building, or assaulting an enemy installation. The game also forces the players to adhere to realistic rules, called the ROE, or Rules of Engagement. Michael Zaida, one of the lead designers, explained, "All players abide by rules of warfare. If a player violates the Uniform Code of Military Justice, Rules of Engagement, or Laws of Land Warfare, reprisal is instant. He will find himself in a cell at Fort Leavenworth, accompanied by a mournful harmonica playing the blues. Continued violation of the rules may cause a player to be eliminated from the game. To rejoin, he must create a new ID and restart." Using these, along with many other rules, teaches players the reality of the military, giving a mindset and conveying a message, all without directly explaining it, subconsciously forcing the player to absorb this information. You know when fucking Tom Nook, he fucking takes your money for rent, or you know all that shit? It's teaching you about capitalism? That's procedural rhetoric. Like, it applies to a lot of things. Okay, so now that there is an understanding of what procedural rhetoric is, how can it be used when combined with the aspect of replayability? Replayability, a word that according to this spell check isn't a word. It is the factor of how engaging it is to replay a game. It is very common nowadays for games to throw in aspects to encourage players to replay the game, most popularly a New Game Plus, which tweaks the game in some way. However, these very frequently can feel forced and shoveled in, and I, as a completionist, tend to want to see all the game has to offer. I have seen way too many poor ones. However, once in a while, the rare game comes along where replayability is expressly made and planned to be a part of the game, where if you want the full experience, not replaying the game isn't even an option. The game most famous for doing this in recent media is Toby Fox's Undertale, but I want to focus on a game that is a bit less in the limelight. Nier Automata. Developed by Platinum Games and published by Square Enix, Nier Automata is one of my favorite games of all time. Its soundtrack and story are absolutely phenomenal, and the way it uses procedural rhetoric is by allowing the player to replay the game, and this really should be done because more than half the game is hidden behind this. In fact, If you push through, you get to see the continuation of the story, which is overall very depressing and nihilistic, which is how the game presents itself, putting the player in this closed mindset where everyone, and I mean almost every single character in this game, are gonna die at some point. The game is ridden with suicides and nihilistic thoughts about how nothing really matters, whether machines have souls, what makes one alive, and all these mini series of stories have they very rarely end positively. We can chalk it up to that. The game kills the entire main cast even faster than the realization that hit me that my channel has peaked after one video. And this is what everything has been culminating to. You were able to recruit the deleted save files of other players to help you defeat these final credits, as they would be nearly impossible on your own, like life itself. And afterwards, you were given the option to sacrifice your own save file, which will help a random stranger who you will never meet or be able to thank you. It's okay to ask for help, and no matter how dark it seems, there is always light if you keep pushing through. This message is conveyed perfectly and is how replayability should be used in games. However, it is not always done well. Greece is absolutely stunning. It probably has my favorite art in any game ever, and its soundtrack is mesmerizing. However, it is with a heavy heart that I must announce that the way it handles the idea of perseverance doesn't nearly compare to Nier Automata. It really falls flat. Let me explain. It mostly conveys its meaning with its absolutely stunning art and visuals, but gameplay-wise, as the character comes more and more to terms with her mother's death, the puzzles only get more complex. The only reasoning for why this is because it's a video game, and the game getting easier as it progresses would break the flow of the game, so the game tries to compensate by giving the player more power-ups to give a sense of power, but the player struggling where the character is flourishing can be a bit confusing. The character does get more power-ups and becomes stronger as the story proceeds, but again, that is fairly basic, and I think we can just chalk that up to game design. Additionally, there are little secrets in each area that are labeled as a different stage of grief, but when you look at the statistics of how many players have gotten each achievement, it is more likely than not that the player won't find a single one of these in their original playthrough. I found 2, because I'm a completionist, I went back to find them all. And they are nearly impossible to find without the internet. Some of them are just ridiculous. Going through the game, scouring for secrets, kind of broke my immersion the second time, especially since I already knew what I was looking for. I had seen the completion of the journey and had reached the happy ending of the game, and scouring the early areas searching for little achievements called denial and depression just really broke my immersion. Again, correct usage of procedural rhetoric is not an essential aspect for a good game, and while the procedural rhetoric of Greece doesn't exactly shine, it has an excellent magical experience. Go buy it, go play it right now. Overall, procedural rhetoric and replayability is a topic that I haven't seen mentioned before, and thought that the combination of the two deserves a bit more recognition. Nier Automata serves as an excellent example of what to do, and Greece showcases a little bit of what not to do. Again, both of these are entirely based on my humble opinion. But I believe that utilizing new mechanics and breaking expectations more effectively showcase an opinion than repeating exactly the same thing with a few little Easter eggs. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more of these videos, hit subscribe. If you don't want to ever fucking see me again, then fucking go away. You don't need to fucking hit the subscribe button. I'm not your friend. Won't hurt my feelings. It's okay.